Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Gerst Gazette episode 24. We just watched an amazing deleted scene from Lost. In it, we see the aftermath of a fight between the characters Sawyer and Sayid. Sawyer's an American and Sayid's Iraqi. So in this episode, we're going to discuss one of the biggest conflicts to happen between those two countries, the Gulf War.
Here's a brief rundown on what happened in the Gulf War.
In 1990 to 1991, a war broke out in the Middle East between Iraq and Kuwait due to economic conflicts. Kuwait was overproducing oil, which caused a lot of loss of billions of dollars a year for Iraq. Another point is that Kuwait is slant drilling into the Melias oil fields, which Iraq perceived this as economic warfare, as they lost a lot of revenue. They were also over the OPEC quotas. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries limits the amount of oil that each country that can produce. But Kuwait amounts of 2 million barrel of oil per day was way off the charts. Iraq decided to invade them to gain back power.
And the Americans sided with Kuwait, fighting against Iraq.
In the show, there are two characters who have fought in this war. Hurley's briefly mentioned friend was fighting for the U.S., and Sayid said he was fighting for the Republican Guard, which meant he fought for Iraq.
So, do you think Iraq was justified to start the war to improve its economic position, or were the Americans justified in participating in the war to eliminate a potential threat? Was that even their true agenda?
From what I know, Iraq was only trying to sustain its own economy. Kuwait was starting to damage their exports by overproducing oil, and then they really crossed the line by drilling in their territory.
America had no business in participating in the war. Did Iraq really pose such a great threat to have so many countries attack at once?
America had actual business with Iraq. They were alerted of 30,000 troops moving towards Kuwait. In Iraq's human rights history, it's shown that they have used methods of torture. It was believed that they had WMDs. These are all valid reasons for another country to intervene with its affairs.
But was that their true agenda? Research shows that America did not actually have an opinion on Iraq's affairs, and considered the war an elective war, where they had a choice on whether to join or not. From Iraq's perspective, they were only trying to improve their own economic situation, since Kuwait had been damaging their economy. Interference from a military superpower was uncalled for.
Well, if the threat in Iraq wasn't America's true motivation for participating in the war, what was?
Well, the Cold War had just ended as well, so America could have attacked due to it being a more communist country, while America was capitalist.
I agree. Was the war really about fighting against potential threats and disarming WMDs, like America claimed, or was it really a conflict of ideology?
That's a very good point, and it could be America's reason for fighting in a war that wasn't theirs. This can be further supported by using German philosopher Karl Marx's conflict theory, which states that opposing groups will always be in conflict with each other. These groups could have different levels of wealth, different races, and especially different political views.
Conflicting ideologies might contribute to the cause of the Gulf War and America's participation. America could have used Iraq's war with Kuwait as a chance to fight a political enemy.
All of you provided some valid points concerning conflict theory, but could there also be a desire for more resources that could have fueled the war?
Well, of course. As we briefly mentioned before, the war was fought over a position of oil between Iraq and Kuwait.
But then the Americans decided to participate in the fight that originally was only between them. Although they claimed to feel threatened by Iraq's WMDs, it was also very likely that America participated in the war to profit itself. After the war ended, they gained a whole lot of oil and opium, which didn't help with Iraq's economic crisis.
I think both of these examples can be supported with Thomas Hobbes' ideology that people are selfish creatures who do anything to better their position. The actions taken by both sides were self-centered. America had taken actions that would coincidentally benefit them greatly, including spreading their influence to the Middle East and obtaining large quantities of oil and opium poppies after the war was resolved, while Iraq took actions that could improve its current economic state. And let's not forget that Kuwait was stealing oil from Iraq, which started this whole fiasco.
This whole idea of Hobbes' theory of people being selfish and willing to do anything to improve their situation was also touched upon in Lost. In Lost, Jack and Sayid accused Sawyer of stealing their final supply of water, fitting him into Hobbes' model of a selfish human, as he was endangering the entire group to improve his own chance of survival.
I understand that there are many perspectives in this war, between Iraq and America, and between other countries involved. But who is the real enemy of this war, if any?
The enemy of this war was neither country, but rather mankind's inherent nature of selfishness and self-preservation, as mentioned before.
An example of this would be Iraq retaliating against their neighbors due to what they had done to them, which caused more destruction and worsened their situation more so than before.
Similarly to the show Lost, Sawyer had argued with Jack about putting Marshall down to stop him from suffering from his injuries, which Sawyer had done himself with a gun after he had argued. However, the marshal was put into a worse condition, which worsened the situation and caused more pain instead.
Also, the majority of American citizens were brought up to believe that Iraq and other Middle Eastern countries had WMDs and posed a major threat to the world. Nature versus nurture plays a partial role, as the citizens were brought up in an environment where that belief was widely spread. To further that bias, the fact that the US themselves have similar weapons was also disguised.
Sawyer must have been raised in an environment which was very unaccepting of other national groups, or taught that people from the Middle East are dangerous based on previous terrorist attacks. Sawyer referred to Said as a terrorist, which indicates that he has something against people of the same or similar ethnicity.
Right. So maybe him or someone close to him has been affected by a Middle Eastern before? Maybe from a specific terrorist attack in the past?
That's a good point. The plane was supposedly crashed on September 22nd, 2004. We know that there was a major terrorist attack on December 11, 2001. Maybe a family member was affected by this. There was also an attack on the Pentagon on the same day, so maybe Sawyer thought that any Middle Eastern on a plane was a deadly combination. Following up with an actual crash, this may had exacerbated his fear and aggression.
Well, we had a pretty heavy discussion on the Gulf War. Make sure to join us next time on Gerskazat, where we talk about if Minecraft makes you violent.